scattered like trees. Sometimes in life, I'm down all the time.
Hello guys, Mark Newton from the School of Photography here, and in this tutorial I'm going to bring to you how to do a long exposure seascape photography, that type of photograph where the water goes like glass. Now this is going to be a really quick tutorial because I'm just out and about doing a shot, and I thought I would film for you what I do, show you all of the equipment that I use, the settings and all of that kind of stuff. If you want in-depth knowledge of ND filters and long exposure photography, then come over and see us. We've got a whole course on long exposure photography and a free guide to ND filters and, well, long exposure photography. All right, so you can get that link is in the description of this video. Go and grab that, it is for free, and it will give you a more in-depth look at this kind of stuff. Now I'm on the beautiful island of Tenerife, and it's a great place for this type of photography because we've got volcanic rocks coming out of the sea. And the first thing that you obviously need to do is get in position and get a composition that you want, and I've already got that, got myself into position. And then what you need to do is figure out what type of hard grad that you need, if you need one. Now in this shot the sky is a lot brighter than the sea and the rocks, obviously because we are doing black rocks. So for that you are going to need a graduated filter. Because I'm doing a seascape shot, I'm using a hard grad filter. And what you have to do first of all is figure out the difference in the exposure of the sky to the ground. Now that's really easy to do. This is the way that I do it. I put my camera onto aperture priority, I put the aperture onto f16, the ISO onto 100, and then I take an exposure reading from the ground and an exposure reading from the sky. So in this particular case, the exposure of the sea and the rocks was 1/15 of a second, roundabouts, 1/15 of a second. And then when I lifted the camera up, pointed it at the sky, it was 1/60th of a second. Now what that means is that the sky is 2 stops brighter than the ground. So quite simply, you need to use a 2-stop graduated filter. I'm using a hard grad filter because it's a seascape. Yes, I do have rocks protruding out of the horizon line, but I can sort that out when I go back into editing in Lightroom. And once you've figured out what hard grad that you need, you quite simply slot it into your filter holder system. And I recommend that you use filter holder systems for this type of photography because that way you can mix filters together, which is what we're doing. You just simply push your hard grad filter down, down, down into the shot until it hits the horizon line, and it really is as simple as that. So you figure out what hard grad that you need, or first of all you figure out whether you need a soft or a hard grad, and then if it's a hard grad in this case, you just look through your viewfinder, you push that graduated filter down until it hits the horizon line. It is as simple as that. The next thing that you need to do is expose for the scene. All right, so once your hard grad is in, take an exposure reading. And this is where your knowledge of photography will come into play. This type of photography is not something that you can tackle as a beginner. You need to learn photography properly, and what I mean by that is you need to learn how to use your camera in manual, what stops are, what apertures are, and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to briefly explain it to you now. I'm using ISO 100. That is to reduce noise. I don't want any noise in the shot, so I'm going to use ISO 100. I'm using an aperture of f16, and that is so that I get a long depth of field. I'm using a wide angle lens because, you know, I want to get lots into the shots. Okay, so I'm using an ultra wide angle lens. I'm putting it on around about between 16 and 20 millimeters of focal length on a full frame camera. Once you've got your exposure, and in my case, my exposure without an ND filter in was 1/15 of a second. So f/16 ISO 100 at 1/15 of a second. Then you need to figure out what your exposure time is going to be when you stop the light by 10. I'm using a 10 stop ND filter. Quite simply going to slot the 10 stop ND filter in and then expose for the time that you need to. Now, you can get all complicated with maths and all of this kind of stuff, or you can download my free ND filter guide, which works it all out for you. Now, 1/15 of a second with a 10 stop ND filter in works out to be around about 1 minute of exposure time. Now, 1 minute of exposure time with C like this is about right, actually. That should make the water look like glass, give you that mirrored look, which is obviously what I want. So that's perfect. So now what I do is I put my 10 stop ND filter in behind the hard grad filter and then do an exposure for 1 minute. Now, when you're doing exposures above 30 seconds on most cameras, you're going to have to go into bulb mode. So bulb mode allows you to open up the shutter for basically as long as you want to, and most cameras go up to 30 seconds in their normal settings, in manual or wherever you want to be. But if you want to go above 30 seconds, you have to use bulb, and that is what I am using on my camera. So I put the camera onto bulb, aperture f/16, ISO 100, the hard grad's in, the 10 stops in. I've worked out my exposure time, which is 1 minute, and then quite simply I take the shot, and it really is as simple as that. So I'm ready to go pretty much. I'm all set up. I'm just going to wait for that sun to come down a little bit so that I get a bit more of that golden hour, if you like, and then I'm going to take the shot. As the sun goes down, the lights will drop and you may have to increase the exposure time. You will only know that when you start taking the shots and looking at the back of the camera. So let's take this shot and show you the results. But before I do, I want to take this opportunity to tell you about the courses that we run over at theschoolofphotography.com. If you want to learn photography properly, if you want to learn long exposure photography, if you want to learn studio lighting, Lightroom, everything photography related, we have a course for you. We're professional teachers. I've been teaching since 2002, and I promise you I can make you a better photographer. So come over to theschoolofphotography.com, where we deliver professional, high quality photography courses. Right, let's take this shot and show you the results. Okay, I hope you like that shot and you like this tutorial. Don't forget, you've got a free guide in the description of this video. Click it, download it. It gives you all information on ND filters. Like the video, please. Support us by doing that and sharing it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel. It's the only way we can bring you these tutorials if you do all of them things, and we love you for it. Thanks for watching, and remember, learn more at the School of Photography.